What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. Talking some baseball today, 11-game slate, so a lot to talk about, and really awesome day of sports overall. Of course, we got the baseball. That'll be the focus of this show, but we've got 2 Game 7s, Knicks and Pacers, and Nuggets and Wolves here in me and Mangone's neck of the woods. We might be heading to that game. Haven't decided yet. And I am joined, of course, by the world's lead MMA UFC expert, Mr. Travis Mangone, shipping home a title yesterday. Now, you did have to share it with how many of your closest friends? It seemed like a lot, Mangone, but nevertheless, a nice score last night. Congratulations. And how you doing on this Sunday morning?
Yeah, it's good. I think I shared with between like 25 and 30. I don't know the exact number, but it was somewhere around there. But there were some RPS guys in there. I know there was one at least on Twitter in the $3. He said, he also shipped as well, so that was awesome. So excited to see some RPS guys at the top. And hey, I knew nothing. I'm not taking any credit. I give RPS content credit. I read everything. I looked. I ran what I thought was best based on my settings and everything. And called it a day. So it was a nice little, almost a little under $8,000. So you'll take that. And I didn't even know if I was live for the last fight because I was in like 900th place and I was like, there's got to be a team ahead of me. Like, there's no way. And then I saw it slowly creeping up and it got the job done. So that was pretty awesome. And we might go to Timberwolves Nuggets tonight. We'll see. I have a buddy in town that he flew out just for the game. I said to him, I will go as long as the tickets aren't too egregious. So and then I said, hey, DC, you want to go? Let's see if we can make it happen. And we're waiting on the prices to maybe drop. We'll see. But I hope we get to go. I think it'd be a good time. So it should be a really fun Game 7. I even think I saw Ian Edwards say this is going to be a good Game 7. He's excited. So Jokic, we saw the face he had the other day, DC. Like, are you nervous of that face? Just staring off into the distance.
Man, I got to be honest. I don't know how Game 7 is gonna go down. It's been just a crazy series. It does seem like in the last game, the Wolves. I mean, when you win by 40 points, it's easy to say that you kind of figured some things out. But I do think getting Mike Conley back really helped with the spacing, and they kind of switched up their defense too. Basically saying, Jokic, you're no longer going to beat us. They kind of doubled him from the top. So I do think they had some answers. But Denver is gonna have counters to Minnesota's counter, and it kind of seems like Denver will have some answers, and then maybe that'll be it. There's no Game 8, so we'll see if we go. I did go to Game 2. We won. Wolves won that one in a blowout. It's pretty fun.
Was it fun? Was it fun being there for the blowout? Like, were the fans all sad?
Oh yeah, It was awesome. There was I would say 1% to 2% of the people there were Wolves fans, but you could see each of who we were because I mean the Nuggets had nothing to cheer for, right? Like the Nuggets fans never even got to stand up and do anything because they just could laid a complete egg in the game. But the Wolves were going off, and it was one fan or 2 fans in every section standing up, and MVP chants in Denver was cool. So it was awesome, and I kind of think we've seen none of the 6 games in the Wolves Nuggets series have been close, really. My guess is we get a classic Game 7 after kind of a series of blowouts. So it would be fun to go there. Will be fun to watch either way. But enough basketball talk. Of course,
one last basketball thing real quick. There will be a show today. I believe I saw JSU mentioned in the Discord, 12:30 Eastern, 2-game slate. I don't know if it's free or premium, though. So if you do want to see this show and it's on the premium side, you'll need to use that code DC15 to get 15% off and sign up and watch the show. But that's all I know.
Either lost Mangone or I'm we can't tell for sure. I think we lost Mangone. So I think I'm here by myself. He was just going to tell you, promo code DC15 will get you 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. I don't know why he got cut off during the ad read. There you are, Mangone.
I don't know why I got kicked off. That was very strange. But I assume you picked up the ad read and said, "Hey, the show is going to be at 12."
The ad gods didn't like you stealing my thunder there and stealing my reading the DC15 code that I love to do so much on the show. So you're back. Mangone, free Scotty. This is a good avatar. for sure.
Yeah, we even talked about the PGA stuff, which I'm excited for that today because my boy Bryson, I love Bryson, and he's at the top. Snyder's guy, Colin Morikawa, is at the top, and then of course it's Alek Manoah Day. DC, I mean, great transition to the baseball. I saw Manoah was on the slate, and I was like, oh, DC's gonna love this slate, and we got to click on the Rays, which is never a comfortable click, at least these days. So should be a fun one.
I might surprise you with my Manoah take today. We'll get to that game and every other game, but let's jump into it. First game that we'll talk about, Boston, St. Louis. This one, the lone game that starts at 1:05 Eastern time, half an hour before all the other games on the slate. 8.5 total in this one, pretty close to a pick 'em in terms of the betting line. Red Sox are slight favorites behind Nick Pivetta, who will take the hill for the Sox against Matthew Liberatore, who probably is looking at 4 innings, maybe 5 tops, a little bit of a bullpen game for St. Louis. And I will say this, really good hitting weather in St. Louis and several other places, but 85, 90 degrees, humid, a little bit of wind blowing out in St. Louis. Obviously, normally a pitcher's park, and that'll be somewhat true today anyway, despite the weather. But we'll be playing more like a hitter's park than normal in St. Louis, at least so far from what we've seen this year. As I said, Liberatore, Pivetta, modest total of 8.5. Over to you, Mangone. What do you see here, Red Sox and Cardinals?
Yeah, so I was wondering if that would be the case today with the weather. Good weather everywhere. I know we had some pretty good weather yesterday, and I was like, we might have some really good weather for day games tomorrow. And that is the case here. So obviously Boston and the Cardinals going to be an interesting game. Nick Pivetta is not someone I like to target or actually take bats against typically. I like to play him typically more than that. Will I do it here? Not dying to. I think he's fine at 8K. I think he has upside. So he's in the pool, but he's not like he's not a core player or anything like that. One of those guys, if I get a percentage of, it's not the end of the world. But like if I was playing 3 lineups, I'm probably not playing Nick Pivetta, right? Matt Liberatore, not playing him either. I do like some of these Boston bats. You know, when he's one of those pitchers, DC, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're obviously more of the pitching guru than me, but when Liberatore's not on and he doesn't have his control, he gets wild and he walks a lot of runners. And when the control's not on, that's where you get the big innings, right? Where you get like the 8-run innings and the crazy ones. And the Red Sox bats are hitting the ball pretty good. The one counter argument you can make there is Liberatore is a lefty, and the Red Sox do struggle against lefties. So maybe that's a reason if the Red Sox are chalked to any reason, you could make the case to maybe stay away. But I think I'm going to have some interest in the Red Sox here. I think they make sense. I want to see their lineup too. Is that already out? Let's see. Yeah, it is already out. And Kay Devers is in the lineup. Bottom of the order is a little bit rougher, but that gives you some value too throughout your lineups with Grissom and Rafaela. So, and like Tyler O'Neill. Like Tyler O'Neill is going to be a great one-off against a lefty. I'm sure he's one of the better home run calls of the slate, you could argue. So there's definitely good bats here on the Boston Red Sox. They're going to be in play. They can even maybe be a better mini stack, you could argue. Like, for instance, like if you played a Tyler O'Neill and you used like Rafaela or Grisham as like values to help make everything work in your lineup, I could see the mini stacks working really well with Boston. So overall, I think this is a spot where we got to target the Red Sox. I'm not going to target the Cardinals or not really going to play Nick Pivetta. But if you are in the meeting, let's say you're playing that 20 max and you got like 10 or 5%, I wouldn't just pull him out of the pool. I do think he does have the ability to have a ceiling game against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm not really on Pivetta or the Cardinals bats. Just kind of avoiding both sides of that matchup. I'm with you. I do think the Red Sox bats are the most interesting plays in this game. Of course, led by Tyler O'Neill against a bad lefty, in St. Louis. I think O'Neill's an awesome play. And then I like the 2 guys at the bottom of the lineup for the Sox. Vaughn Grisham is still very cheap at 2,600. He hasn't really done, I don't think, much of anything since being, he's been horrible. So, but it's only been, 10 games. You can play him 2,600. I think he's a nice value. And I don't mind Rafaela down there either at 3,200. Pinch your risk, though, for several guys in the Red Sox lineup. I think Ref Snyder and Garrett Cooper, who do look like pretty good values otherwise, Both pretty likely to be pinch hit for in this game once Liberatore comes out of there. So just be aware of that. If you are going to the Red Sox, I do think it's Tyler O'Neill, who's the number one play in the Boston-St. Louis game. Let's get to the 1:35 Eastern time window. It is Seattle and Baltimore up first. 7 total in this one. Pretty low total in Baltimore. Corbin Burnes and George Kirby, so 2 very good pitchers going at it. Burnes has been solid this year. We'll say the strikeouts have taken a noticeable dip for him. He's kind of on a 3 or 4 year decline in that department. Not sure quite what to think of it. His stuff still looks good, but yeah, I mean, he had the 11 strikeout game opening day against the LA Angels. Since then, his high in strikeouts in the next, I don't know what it is, 7 or 8 starts, I think, is 6. He hasn't had more than 6 strikeouts in any of his starts since opening day. That's almost 2 months of starting pitching assignments there. So that's a little bit worrisome for me, but he gets the team that can cure that instantly. It's Seattle Mariners. They are the highest strikeout team overall in baseball. Burnes at home here, modest weather. I mean, it all really checks out for Burnes on paper. There's no question about it. I'm just a little worried about the lack of strikeouts recently, but he's still probably a strong play. I do think he'll be popular, Mangone. I'm sure some people will go to George Kirby, but I'm seeing him, Sabres got him, 3-4% owned. I think he's at least interesting at 8,800 and that price tag. Obviously, we much prefer to play him at home, but I wouldn't hate it here. No Adley Rutschman in the lineup, so it is a little bit of a weaker lineup from the Orioles. But yeah, I think Burnes is probably. I mean, I'll still have interest. 35% on something like that, I think, is fair. I don't know if I'm going to play many Orioles bats. I do think Henderson, O'Hearn against Kirby could take him deep. And then I'm not playing much Seattle against Corbin Burnes. Where do you stand on this one, Mango?
Yeah, I do think a lot of people will play Corbin Burnes. If you want to just get into it real quick, the chalkiest pitchers of the day are probably Burnes, Rodon, Nola, and then maybe BB. But I think Nola and Burnes might battle each other out.
I think those top 3, Rodon, Burnes, Nola, are all going to be like 30 to 50% on something like that.
Agreed. That's definitely what it looks like for me. So I'm in agreement. And I mean, the Seattle Mariners, I'm even surprised they finally leaped the Reds in strikeouts just because the Reds were striking out so much. But they've been terrible this year, right? If I told you Seattle led the league in strikeouts like 6 weeks into the season, I think you'd be like a little bit surprised by that. It's crazy how bad they've been. And Corbin Burnes, he's just someone that the strikeouts are too good to pass up on, right? He's just too good of a quality pitcher. When he gets this matchup, I'm going to love him. So it's definitely a good spot for him for sure. He's 9.6K. He's also not like 11K, right? It can always be a debate when like that top end pitcher is like up in that 11K or more. Like at least he's still cheap at 9.6. So it's not hard to get in there if you want to. It's fairly easy. So 9.6K, he's a really good play. I love the George Kirby call as a pivot. We've talked a lot about this on the shows, how, hey, like there's not a big difference in like pitchers as people think, where it's definitely valuable if one of like the top end pitchers tanks. And I'm not saying Corbin Burnes tanks today, but like, dude, there's definitely a chance like a Carlos Rodon tanks at ownership, right? I mean, not saying Carlos Rodon is someone I won't play, but like, I'm just saying that dude, it's a shaky experience with him. So that's why you can make the case that for only 400 more, a George Kirby is a fantastic like leverage play or pivot in that range that I'm going to like as well. The argument you can make against it is, well, why am I targeting the Baltimore Orioles? Well, George Kirby has just been good against almost everyone this year. So that's the argument for it. And you could argue if you're going to make a leverage play like that at lower ownership, maybe not attack the Baltimore offense, which is certainly fine, but Kirby's in play. It just doesn't take that much to get overweight on him here. So I think I like the pitchers here, and I don't like any of the bats. Like this is a game that I will not have any exposure to the bats.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You would get these guys super low out. I don't mind them as one-off. Gunner and O'Hearn would be the choices from the Orioles side, and then Burnes. He does give up a lot of speed against him. So Josh Rojas, Julio Rodriguez. If you do want to get leverage against the chalk, I think those guys are reasonable plays for sure. If you want to go a different direction than the field is going.
Yeah,
Next game.
we talked about that on the Ellie De La Cruz slate, right? We said how you could play him against Glass. Now you could play him literally with Glass now on the same team if you wanted.
Yeah.
And what did Ellie do? Ellie dropped 44. Now Glass now got 15. It wasn't like, the greatest performance on the greatest pitching slate ever, DC. But Ellie De La Cruz, you played him there because of his speed power combination, and you could certainly do that with some of these Mariners as well if you really wanted to. It's not the same slate, but I think you could do it.
Yeah, no, Ellie's one of a kind with the stolen bases right now. He's not on the slate, obviously, but yeah, point taken. Let's get to Yankees and White Sox up next. Carlos Rodon and Chris Flexen going. This Yankees team playing some very, very good baseball right now. The offense has been on fire, making people a lot of money. I know Steve Boynton's been very high on the Yankees for some time now. That's certainly paid off and probably pays off again here. Yankees with the highest team total on the day, sitting at 5.6 runs against Chris Flexen, who is not any good, does not have a good bullpen behind him either. And we know what this Yankees lineup can do. So I think you got to like almost everybody in the Yankees lineup. I'm probably not playing a John Birdie down there at the bottom, but I think everybody else, 1 through 8, looks good to me from the Yankees. I'm sure they'll be popular, rightfully so. No interest in Flexen, obviously. Carlos Rodon has been pretty damn good this year. He's kind of owned me. I really haven't played him too often. I'm considering jumping on board today, man. Now, you know how that usually turns out when you haven't been playing a player much. You try to hop on, and it usually kind of crashes and burns. But nevertheless, Rodon, at least on paper, pretty awesome play here at 8,400. Obviously not a very good White Sox lineup. It is 9 right-handed bats, which isn't completely ideal for Rodon, but nevertheless, I do think he is a strong play here. I guess the biggest question here, two chalky sides of the bolt on the Yankees, right? We're going to see a lot of ownership on Rodon. We're going to see a lot of ownership on the Yankees bats. And frankly, for me, it's kind of hard to, say much bad about those plays. It seems like a pretty good place to go. So where do you stand, Mangone, on Yankees and White Sox?
Yeah, so I've definitely been pretty good with the Yankees this year. They've done me pretty well. Listen, they're the best offense of the slate. If you just look at, the Vegas numbers and everything like that, they're going to have ownership. If you just don't care about the ownership, that's fine. I do care a little bit about it. I always hate taking like the chalkiest offense of the day. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I'm not going to argue with some of these bats here in this spot. But one thing I also have said this year, I've said it on a bunch of these shows, is I said, Chris Flexen isn't this absolute gas can just to always target. Like I said,
he's pretty bad, man. He's pretty bad.
I mean, sure, but what I'm saying is I don't think he's as bad as the ownership that's coming in always on the other side, right? Like that's kind of been my argument. Like I know he's not an amazing pitcher. I'm not saying this dude's going out and get the Cy Young, but does it warrant the ownership is always the question. And when Chris Flexen's going against the Yankees, I'm fine with it because the Yankees are actually really good. It's when people are like, dude, I want to take the Cleveland Guardians against Chris Flexen and we're playing 25% chalk on the Cleveland Guardians, right? That's the shit I'm not buying. That's the stuff I'm not interested in. I'm way more interested in Yankees chalk because I actually believe in these bats. These bats actually have power. They're a very strong lineup right now. So I can get behind it here, DC. That's why I've kind of said it in the other spots. I look at some of the one of the performances was against the Tampa Bay Rays, right? And the chalk Twins. That's just shit. It doesn't fly with me. But the Yankees, I can get behind. So I will like the Yankees. Another argument to make: if you don't like playing chalk offensive 5-mans, you can always play them as 3-mans or 2-mans. I mean, that's always fun to pick off those one-off homers. And if one guy just absolutely smashes like Juan Soto the other day, well, you're in great shape. So you certainly can get the job done with that. Yankees are going to be a great play. Let me just double check their lineup to see if they're sitting anyone that they normally aren't. They got Volpe, Soto, Judge, Verdugo, Stanton, Rizzo, Torres, Trevino, who I actually like having Trevino down there. He's been pretty solid. And then Birdie as a value, which isn't the worst play and gives you a little bit of flexibility sometimes with some of the positions, especially I think on FanDuel specifically with him. So overall, really good Yankees lineup. We have value. We have power bats. It's everything you want. You just wish you would get it lower owned into yourself, but that's okay. It's a pretty good spot. And the weather is 75 degrees and wind blowing in about like 5 to 10 miles an hour, but not super worried about that in Yankee Stadium. So overall, pretty good spot for these Yankees. They're chalk for a reason. They're a good play. And then no, I don't know about White Sox for me, DC. I guess I didn't mention that, but there is some leverage there going up against Rodon, but I don't know.
I'm tempted. Got 4 main teams. I doubt the White Sox will make one of them, but he's not quite as good against right-handed hitters. And, the top of the White Sox lineup is cheap. Pham, Vaughn, Jimenez, DeJong's been hitting Julks, 2,200 and super cheap. So not the craziest thing, but
maybe as minis, right? Like I think you're spot on with some of the guys that you said. It would be like, I mean, Pham is getting pricey, I will say. Like 4.4 is not cheap for him. He's still solid. But Vaughn at 3.3, Jimenez at 4K. I mean, same guys you said, even Julks at 2.2, like that. Like if you did a mini stack of like DeJong and Julks, like it's just dirt cheap. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Or even like as one of our chatters is saying, like Lee, like he's been on fire and he's just a catcher that's cheap. You can easily plug that in. It's catcher. It's a shitty position. So
yeah, Lee's been good. One thing I would say if you are stacking the White Sox, I actually wouldn't go for the game stack. I wouldn't play the Yankees guys on the other side because you want the White Sox to be out to a big lead here where the Yankees don't use the good arms in their pen, which are rested today. So you want a 5 or 4, 5, 6 run White Sox lead if it's close, right? If the Yankees are going off 2 and it's 5-5 or 6-5, it's going to be really tough to score in the second half of the game, in the later innings for the White Sox. So just a strategy note there for White Sox and Yankees if you do want to get contrarian. Let's get to Nationals and Phillies up next. Phillies minus 250 favorites in this one behind Aaron Nola, who got off to a little bit of a rocky start, but has been pretty awesome in most of his starts since then, including complete game shutout against the Mets last time out. He is 9,800, so he is the most expensive pitcher on the slate, but he does have a good matchup here against the Nationals. Pretty modest weather in Philly, 70, 75 degrees, a little bit of winds blowing in. Pretty soft lineup from the Nationals. Now, they do have a lot of good contact bats, so not sure this is an amazing spot for Nola, but a pretty damn good one. He'll be chalky, as we mentioned. And then the Philly side will go up against Trevor Williams, who, he somehow continues to get the job done this year. I think a lot of smoke and mirrors. I don't really expect it to continue, but he has been pretty solid so far. I'm kind of mostly out on the bats here. I think Schwarber and Harper, pretty good plays. And then I do like CJ Abrams a lot if you're not playing Nola. But I don't think I'm going to go crazy with the Nationals bats against Nola. But where do you stand, man, going Phillies and Nationals?
Yeah, Phillies Nationals, definitely not a bad game here. I agree with the Abrams thing. If you do get him, it's not like the worst play, right? You're not playing like Nationals like minis and 5-mans really though here for sure. As we keep going along, the Phillies are definitely a team that I think are intriguing against Trevor Williams. Temperatures are fine today. It's 75 degrees, wind blowing 5 miles per hour in, so nothing crazy, but not bad hitting environment for sure. I like some of these Phillies, though. I'm not scared of Trevor Williams. And, as we're getting into these, like, hotter days, which we're getting there, we're not there yet, but I want these home run balls. These guys can absolutely smash. Like, sometimes you look at offenses. The Guardians is a great example. Like, Guardians could put up 9 runs, and, like, they're not even close to being on the winner because they hit a bunch of sac flies and shitty singles. But Phillies, when they do damage, they're hitting bombs, right? And, I think this Phillies team is one we have to look at. Schwarber, Stott, Harper, boom, really good plays. You got Clemens at 3.2K. It was a nice value. I know Castellanos has been hitting the ball a lot better. They don't have JT Realmuto today. It's Garrett Stubbs at 2.5K, but that's okay. Helps to get you those values. We have some really good pitchers on this slate that we want to get exposure to, so I'm perfectly fine with it. So interested in the Phillies, and I'm interested in Aaron Nola too. I know the Nationals have been a bit of a pesky offense, but the upside that Nola has, he's definitely in the conversation, and he's probably the 3rd highest owned pitcher today. He's not like this like pitcher that stands out that's just like going to be 60% owned. Like, you'll get a little bit of an ownership discount than you will normally. So we got to like these Philadelphia Phillies here. Definitely going to be good plays. And Kevin, I hope we didn't butcher too many names in this last game for you. So sorry about that, Kevin. I don't know who this is. Maybe it's actually Kevin Fallick, but on his own burner named Kevin to try and disguise himself. That's something that I think Fallick would do. Wouldn't you agree, DC?
Yes, of course. And I'm not butchering any names. Come on, if you watch as much baseball as I do, you know how these names are pronounced. At least
it's me. It's me 100%. I am butchering the names. I know it's me, but I don't really care, and that's perfectly fine. I don't watch 1,000 baseball games. I play DFS. I watch a lot of different stuff, but you're not going to catch me watching as many games as DC. I'll say that. That's why he is here running the show.
Yeah. Nobody should watch as much baseball as I do. That's Philly and Washington. We'll keep it moving. Next game on the slate, Mr. Manoah, previously mentioned, goes on the hill here for his third start of the year. First one was brutal. A second one was good. 0 earned runs. He did give up 3 runs, but all were unearned. 6 strikeouts against Minnesota. I mentioned before that start that his stuff actually looked pretty good against even with the bad results in that first start against Washington, and then he backed it up with a good start against Minnesota. I don't want to say Manoah's back, but I'm not that enthused to stack against him, honestly. Which. Listen, it could certainly work out. But I've been playing pitchers against this Rays team a lot. Manoah's cheap at 6,900. I'm tempted, man, going to play Mr. Manoah. Kind of feel like that won't work out at all. So I don't know if I'll go in that direction. And then Aaron Savale pitching for Tampa. He's been very mediocre this season. It is pretty good place to pitch in Toronto. It's really played like a pitcher's park over these last couple of years. I think Manoah might be my favorite play in this game. But I don't know. Talk me off of playing Manoah, Mango. And I don't want to go down with the ship today. It's too early. I don't need my Sunday ruined, before noon on over here in Denver. So I don't know. Where do you stand, Manoah, Savale, Blue Jays, and Rays?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Actually, I started creating a big home run prop bet with a bunch of Rays because I was like, oh, DC's going to like this. And then I said, oh, let me wait till the show just to make sure. And so maybe a good thing I didn't click enter on that. But so my reasoning for maybe not playing Manoah is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I did not play the last Manoah slate. I forget what day it was or whatever was going on in my life. But I think he was 20+% owned on that slate. Was that correct, DC? He had ownership?
I honestly don't remember. Yeah. So.
Maybe a chat member can say. But I remember someone on Twitter posting that he was like 23% owned. And I don't know if it was a cash game thing or a GP. I don't know what it was or whatever contest they were in. But I just thought that was a little bit egregious. And I mean, I look at SaberSim right now. And on Saber, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's the 6th best projected pitcher, and he's 6.9K, and he's the cheapest of them. I think he comes in with ownership, DC. Do we want to play Alek Manoah at I'm going to guess 15% or more? I think he could creep in at 20. Maybe he doesn't just because there's a lot of good pitchers on the slate, but I just think if there's a cheap pitcher and you're just looking at projections, I think he's going to project well. And I'm not that interested in that. So I'm going to fade Manoah. I struggle to play the Rays. The Rays lineup, I don't think is out yet. We're still waiting on it, right? Oh, no, it is out. We got Diaz.
Yeah. It's a pretty good lineup. I mean, it's not a good lineup for them. It's about the best I could put out.
No, it is. I actually don't totally hate it. I actually think you can make an argument for one of these stacks here. For instance, I like Lowe. I like a Arozarena. I don't think Aranda's a bad play at 3.1K. Diaz is always in play, even though he just walks all the time. And I hate rostering guys that just walk, but it just is what it is. I know Palacios, he has power in that bat, right? We saw him, I think, have a winning GPP performance this season. I don't hate this team. So I know that chat was talking about, I'm going to butcher his name. So we're just going to call him Jose. Jose C. He's got some speed in him. So I think the speed is definitely worth attacking as well with him at his price tag of 4.2K. So, you know what, DC? I might consider, just because I think Manoah is going to get some ownership. I don't think people are going to be on the Rays enough. I might consider a Rays stack here the more I keep talking about it.
Certainly not the craziest idea against Manoah. You can also run on him, obviously. So the Rays do have a little bit of speed. Low, Rosarena, Paredes, Palacios. Yeah, a lot of guys. Caballero, obviously, down at the bottom, has, 17, 18 stolen bases. So
why is he back? Why is he back, DC? You were saying he's back, right? Like, why? Like, sell me on it. Maybe you mentioned it and I missed it, but like, I just don't know if I buy that he's back.
Well, the biggest problem with him was he just kind of completely lost confidence, lost command. I mean, he's talked about it. He feels like he's back and feels good. I mean, it's obviously hard to say. It's just one good game, but just from what I've read and listened to from coming out of Blue Jays camp, it seems like they think he's back. So I don't know. Like,
to be fair, once he's back, like he probably is back, right? Like it definitely feels like a confidence thing, right? Like we don't think this will last forever, and maybe if the wheels do just fall off forever, they fall off forever. But if we do see it come back, we kind of have to, I think, buy it right away. So that's definitely like a good argument for if you want to play him and you're buying it, that's how you buy it.
I'm leaning waiting one more start and kind of not going there today. If the Rays had a weaker lineup out there, I'd be more interested in, but it's not like some secret. I think a lot of people are going to play him, like you said. So I'll probably go ahead and maybe wait one more start. But I don't think he's a bad play at all, and I honestly don't think stacking against him is that bad either. I mean, the Rays are cheap. They don't have a bat in that lineup that's over 5K against a pitcher who, we're kind of guessing on, to be honest. We don't really know what to expect from him. If he's the bad version of himself, this Rays team could easily end up near the top of the standings in terms of a stack. So I do think it is one where you can play it either way. Wish it was a better park. I'd be more interested in stacking against him, but is what it is.
That's why I didn't pull the trigger on my home run thing I was doing, because I was trying to find a crazy good one, and I was like, this park just sucks for home runs. Like, it's not a great
It's sneaky bad right now, I think. I just trying to avoid it for the most part. Let's go over to Cleveland. We've got the Guardians and the Twins. Tanner Bybee pitching for Cleveland. He's been just okay so far. This year was decent last time out against Texas. He'll go up against Chris Paddock, who's been very up and down kind of all year long. Seems to be a pitcher who, in the good matchups, he gets the job done and then kind of struggles in the tough ones. This one, I would say, is pretty tough against the Guardians, who do a really good job of putting the ball in play. Modest weather conditions in Cleveland, 75 degrees, a little wind blowing in. Certainly a nice day for baseball. 7.5 total in this one. We know, of course, the Twins behind Chris Paddock have a very, very elite bullpen. I think it's relatively rested too. Yeah, they didn't use any of their top guys yesterday. That's enough to pretty much take me off of Cleveland entirely. Not going to use Paddock, though, so just going to avoid both sides of that matchup, Paddock versus the Guardians' bats. I think Bybee's an okay play, but I just don't think he has nearly the upside of a Carlos Rodon. Burns, Nola aren't that much more expensive. Some decent cheap pitchers like Manoah we talked about, so I probably won't end up on Tanner Bybee. Frankly, probably won't play a whole ton of this game in general. Anything you like in this game, Guardians and Twins, Mango?
Yeah, I know I talked a little bit of trash about the Guardians the other day, and someone in chat earlier said the Guardians had 11 runs yesterday. Yes, they did, but you know what? In classic Guardians fashion, only one home run, and who was that? Jose Ramirez, because Jose Ramirez is the only guy that actually has power on that team. So that's the reason.
The disrespect for Josh Naylor is going too far. He's got like 12 home runs already.
That's fair. I definitely don't mind the Naylor bros, especially because you can play Bo at catcher, right? Which isn't always a great position, but yeah, that's fair. So I don't want to really play the Guardians. Like, I'm kind of with you. Don't really want to play the Guardians. I also don't really want to play Chris Paddock. Like, just seems like an easy stay away from both sides spot. When it comes to the Twins, this one's tricky because I don't like the Twins here. I don't want to target Bybee either. It's not someone I want to go out and target, but I think Bybee gets enough ownership at the starting pitching position where, yes, you can make the argument he has upside against the Twins, but when I look around at the other pitching candidates, I just want to play those guys more. I don't I don't think I'm getting Bybee at like 5%. If I was getting Bybee at 5% and Corbin Burns is at 30%, well, based on math, I'd like Bybee more. But I just don't think the gap is that large. I think the gap is just going to be very small. I think you're going to see Bybee at like, 10 to 15. Maybe he could even get to 20. And I think you're going to see Burns at like that, like between like 20 and 40%. The gap's just not large enough. So I don't love Bybee. I think there's other pitchers I'd rather take a chance on. I'd rather take a chance on like a lower owned Kirby, rather take a chance on some of these other pitchers like Nola and Burns, who we talked about. So for me, not really getting a Bybee in this game feels like more of a fade for me.
Yeah, we're on the same page on that one. Probably not going to those pitchers. And just frankly, a game I'm just not going to have that much of overall. Next game on the slate, we got 5 more games to talk about. New York Mets, Miami Marlins. I think this one is pretty interesting for pitching, at least on the Sean Manaea side. Our friend, Sean Manaea, saw him outside of Coors Field, obviously, when we went to that game. Good times there. But he gets a really nice matchup here against the Marlins, who are, so far in the year, the second worst team overall against left-handed pitchers. Obviously, a nice place to pitch in Miami. And, Manaea does show upside at times. So I do think Manaea definitely in play at 7,700. Opposite him will be kind of former top prospect, but not anymore. Sixto Sanchez hasn't pitched well this year. Is building up his pitch count. He got to 81 against Detroit, so it should be more or less a full go here. He is 6K. He's cheap, but I can't do it with Sixto Sanchez. I'm not that excited about the Mets, honestly, in Miami either. The guys with power, at the top of the lineup, Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, I think looks okay, but kind of boring. And I just would be surprised if it's the Mets that break this slate. And then I don't really like much on the Marlins side either. It is Sean Manaea, Mangon, that I think is the most interesting play in this game at 7,700. Your thoughts on Manaea and any bats are going to for Miami and in the New York Mets here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's spots like by we get to this time of the year, there's kind of just spots we know like, hey, if we have a lefty against the Marlins, we play him, right? We consider them. And we have to consider, and it could be, it could be JT Hayes out there. I know he's a righty, but if he was throwing lefty, I would consider him against the Marlins right now. So Sean Manaea definitely in play. I think we have to like him. And I know our good friends at SaberSim have him under 10% right now. I don't know if that holds true, but if it does, I'm certainly interested. I think he's a really good play. And I think it does hold true a bit just because I think people are going to play a lot of other pitchers on this slate. No one's ever racing to play Sean Manaea. 7.7K, I think he's a really good value on this slate. So like Sean Manaea, definitely going to be playing him and getting some exposure. I don't totally hate the Mets. I think I have more interest in them than you do, DC. I think we do get some pretty good price tags on these options. I mean, I think Francisco Lindor at shortstop, I don't think he's a bad play at 4.7. Pete Alonso, he's under 5K at 4.9. Don't mind him. You get Brandon Nimmo at 4.4. And then DJ Stewart at 3.1K. In the 4-hole, I know he can be a rough roster at times, but Sixto Sanchez isn't that great. And this bottom of the order has a lot of value. So I think from a mini stack perspective, you could sell me on like you play one Pete Alonso or Francisco Lindor, and then you throw in one of those like cheap options with them as like a 2-man. So I could totally see that as an option. So again, Sixto Sanchez isn't this amazing pitcher. And it's not a bad pitching slate for sure. It seems like a pretty good one where we're going to have to like some bats. I know we've talked about some that we like, but I just think there's some value here that we can't completely ignore. And we're not saying go out and like do the 5-mans, right? I think it's more the minis are the intriguing options here.
Yeah, Sanchez has not been good. I don't think he is any good. And it's also a pretty bad bullpen for the Marlins as well. Really not many arms you fear coming out of the pen. So
yeah, the bullpen's got worked. The bullpen's got worked yesterday too, DC. I think that's another good point that a chat member brought up. And I remember that game went pretty deep yesterday. It was like 10-9. So both sides were taxing their bullpens left and right.
Yeah. I mean, Mets make some sense. Like you said, I think specifically the top of the lineup. Maybe you go down to DJ Stewart. I think I would probably cut it off there myself. But yeah, they do certainly have some upside against Sixto, who I do think is very capable of blowing up. So, we're on the same page on that game. Sean Manaea, I mean, below 10% against Miami, like that seems like a pretty good spot at that price point. So I'm with you there. he will be on at least one of my 4, maybe 2 of my 4 lineups today, Mr. Sean Manaea. Let's go Milwaukee and Houston up next. 8.5 total in this one. Spencer Arrighetti pitching for Houston. He's pretty bad. He's got an ERA up over 7 still, allowing almost 2 base runners per inning. Now, a lot of that was due to his first outing of the year, which was brutal against Kansas City, but he's still a pitcher to target for me. Astros bullpen kind of rested, which is why I'm not as high on these Brewers bats, but I still do think they could absolutely do some damage against Arrighetti. And then I really like the Astros side of this one too against Mr. Colin Rea, who I think is pitching above his head at the moment. He is a pitcher I want to target. He does, or at least in his history, has given up a lot of home runs, a lot of steals. And so, yeah, most of these Astros have either power or speed, or, in the cases of Altuve and Tucker, both. So I'm in on this Astros team. I think they're going to go a little bit overlooked just because of the modest team total, but I can see them doing some damage here. So, yeah, I'm in on the Astros. No interest in either pitcher, and then some interest in the Brewers as well. Where do you stand, man? Going Brewers and Astros.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind the Astros. I'm similar to you on that. I think the Astros, they seem like this team that when there's no offenses to go to, like people just are okay clicking on them. But when there's a lot of other offenses, they're okay just throwing them to the side because they haven't been as good this year. It's just like when they stare at a slate like that Thursday slate and they're like, I don't have a lot that I feel like I love. They'll plug them in and they'll become chalk. But I don't think they'll be chalky. I think they'll be very low owned on this slate. They also, again, have expensive bats. They do have some value throughout their lineup, like we've talked about. Loperfido is definitely a guy that I like to get in there. They got Caratini at 3.3, Myers, Singleton. They have enough value for sure. Even Bregman's only 4.3 right now. He's been hitting the ball pretty good over the past couple weeks. So don't mind these Astros. I like targeting Colin Rea. I don't think he's that good of a pitcher. And then Spencer Arrighetti, he is someone that I've targeted a bit this year. He's had up and down performances for sure. We've talked about how good the Brewers have been throughout this season. I don't know, DC, how do we not like the Brewers a little bit here? I know they're a bit pricey for sure, but I like this Brewers offense. I think they're going to be very low owned. I'm not really scared of Spencer Arrighetti. I think this is a spot where I fade the pitchers, and I actually like both sides when it comes to main stacks, 5-mans, or even mini stacks. I think I got to like this game that you could even pull off a game stack of it if you really want to. So this is definitely a game that I like the bats. I know the Brewers are getting expensive. When you look up and down this lineup, like Contreras is now 6K. You got Yelich at 5.6, Adames at 5K, but you do have value throughout that lineup, and there's good value down there. Like Frelick at 3.7, Ortiz 3.6. I'm going to mess up Jackson's last name, so I'm not going to say it, but he's got some power and pop in his line and in his bat. So I think overall, it's a really good lineup. So I love the Brewers and I love the Astros here. I think it's a good spot for both bats.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle Tucker, my favorite play overall in this one. But like I said, most of those Astros bats are on play. And yeah, you can absolutely go to the Brewers side of it as well if you want to go in that direction. Final 3 games on the slate. We go to the game with the best hitting conditions on the day in Kansas City. Close to 90 degrees at game time for this one, 50% humidity, moderately strong winds blowing out to left center field, which is going to make Kansas City play as a very hitter-friendly environment today, with the caveat that the home runs are still going to be muted in this park. But everything else looks awesome in terms of run-scoring environment, including the pitchers that are on the mound. Brady Singer and JP Sears, in my opinion, 2 guys you want to target against. I know Singer's results have been good on the season. I'm still not really buying that too much. And yeah, I do expect him to come back to earth. That's still moderate interest in the A's for me against Singer. Just obviously not the best lineup in the world, but I think you can do a lot worse than the A's for sure. And then I like the Royals a ton here against JP Sears. No Vinny Pasquantino. He gets the day off. But yeah, Sears gives up a lot of power to really both sides of the plate. Royals they're kind of expensive. The top 3, Garcia, Witt, Perez, the best hitters. You do got to pay for them, but it's a good spot for these guys. So I like the top of the Royals lineup, and I do like the A's as a contrarian stack for sure. Over to you, man, going for Royals and A's here.
Yeah, I definitely like Brady Singer. Obviously I don't love the weather situation, but I think Brady Singer's got so much upside against the A's. I know, the daytime A's, as our guy Steve Boynton loves to say, will be out there, but I'm not scared. I'm not scared of the daytime A's. I think Brady Singer got too much upside to ignore. So I really like him at his price. I love the Royals too. The Royals will probably gain ownership, which is perfectly fine. I'm not scared of it against JP Sears. We got value up and down throughout the lineup. You got Garcia, Witt, and Perez to kick it off. I definitely want to have at least two of them in my lineups. And then you got Velasquez at 3K in the 4-hole, Furman at 3.1K, Renfroe 2.9. You got so much value throughout this lineup. So maybe I'll get Garrett Hampson. I'm not a big Garrett Hampson truther, but I do think this Royals is definitely a good team to target. I'll definitely be getting exposure to them. They're one of the better offenses on the slate, but I definitely want to have exposure in this really good hitting environment against JP Sears.
I'm sure there's a few Garrett Hampson truthers out there somewhere, but I personally never met one. So, yeah, maybe if Garrett Hampson's mother is watching the show, apologies there. But, yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of looking at this A's stack. Yeah, the daytime A's. They're pretty cheap. They got power, and I just don't really believe in Singer. Need to look a little bit more into that, but I do think they could do some damage, and it's not like the Royals pen is that great either. So I've definitely got more interest, I think, in the A's maybe than you do, but that's Oakland and Kansas City. Let's go to Pittsburgh and Chicago up next. Another kind of moderate weather game in Wrigley. Some decently strong winds blowing in, which obviously makes this park play pitcher friendly. You see that reflected in the total, sitting at 7 for Jameson Taillon and Mitch Keller. Two kind of mediocre right-handed pitchers. Keller has been good 2 starts in a row. He's a tough one to predict. He gets hit hard sometimes, and then he'll come out and throw 6 shutout innings against the Brewers with 7 strikeouts. I was on the Brewers in that game. That did not work out. And then Taillon, kind of the same thing. He can miss bats at times. He has been good this year. I wouldn't expect that to necessarily continue, but it is pretty prime pitching conditions here. I'm kind of avoiding this game. I don't really want to play either of these pitchers anyway, even with the wind blowing in, but I don't love the bats in Wrigley when it's tough to hit home runs like it will be today. Where do you stand between the Cubs and the Pirates, Mango?
Yeah, I stacked the Cubs yesterday. Steve Boynton was at the game, and we're going to blame him for that. Thanks, Steve, for ruining my Cubs stack. But it was not good yesterday, and I don't know if it's going to be good today. Like 7 implied total for Mitch Keller and Jameson Taillon, like that feels really low. And obviously, it's got to be some of the weather, right, kind of factored in. I think this game is overall a fade for me. If someone said, hey, I'm playing like a splash of Mitch Keller or Jameson Taillon, I feel like I shouldn't talk them out of it because I understand the reasoning, but it's not going to be me playing him. I won't be rostering him today. So if you're the brave soul that does that, best of luck to you. I won't be rooting against you. But I just don't see myself playing anything in this game. It does feel like overall a fade for me.
Yeah. I think the easiest game to just completely fade on the entire slate would be Pittsburgh and Chicago, in my opinion. All right, last game on the slate. We'll do stacks, home runs, pitchers, plays of the day, all that good stuff. Hit the like button if you haven't yet done so. We do appreciate it. Good Sunday morning crew, as always, watching this show. Help us out. Hit that like button. And if you do want to get all the goodies, go over to Run Pure Sports. Use promo code DC15 for 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. All right, last game on the slate, Angels and Rangers. Michael Lorenzen pitching for the Rangers here. I don't think we have a Angels lineup yet. At least I haven't seen it. If we do, and then Jose Soriano pitching for the Angels. He did well for us. I know a bunch of us used him over at RPS last start against St. Louis. I think he's an okay play at 6,800. He just has elite stuff. And so, yeah, against almost any lineup, I think he's an okay play at his price point. I don't hate it. Don't love it, though, either against Texas, who do have a pretty strong lineup and do have about as good of lineup as you could throw out. Not always the case on Sunday, but they did come with pretty much their A-plus lineup the Rangers have in there today. So probably not playing Soriano. I do think Lorenzen's at least worth talking about. Again, kind of a league average-ish arm, but he's cheap at 7,600. He gets obviously a pretty bad Angels team, and I'll pull it up here again. But last time I checked, it didn't really seem. Yeah, I mean, Sabres got him at I'm seeing 2 to 3% owned for Lorenzen at this price point, which seems really low. I mean, I don't see any reason why he couldn't get to 15, 20 fantasy points against the Angels. So got some interest in Lorenzen there. What about you, man? Going Angels and Rangers.
Yeah. Let me just see. What is his price, Lorenzen?
7,600.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely not a bad price. I just want to compare to that last game. Like, I think I'd rather take Keller's 9K. What is Tyon? Tyon's 7.8. I think I'd rather take the chance on Tyon if I had to pick, but I understand it, right? It obviously gives you a different constructional look. There's a lot of different pitchers you can take on this slate. So I understand it. I think I'd rather get to Tyon, who we talked about before, or Keller. But yeah, I don't want to play the Angels here. And I don't really I wouldn't say I love the Rangers today. I think it's a pretty big slate, right? It's 11 games. There's a lot of different offenses. I think you will get the Rangers low owned if you want them, but Soriano's not a guy I'm looking to roster, or I'm looking to, target the bats again. So I think I'm going to currently stay away for the most part. I think the one thing you could maybe talk me into is I think you could talk me into Angels as a mini stack if you need value, right? Like, let's say you're jamming the Yankees in, who are very chalky, and you want to get in some expensive pitchers or some pretty good ones at least. Well, you need value somewhere. And you can make the argument that the Angels do have value up and down their lineup. Like Nolan Chenal at 3.1K. He's a pretty good value. Willie Calhoun at 3.3K. I don't hate that as a value player. Or a Joe Adell, or a Luis. I'm going to butcher his. I always butcher his. Luis Guillermo, or I don't know. I don't even know how to say his. But Louis G. That sounds better to me. Louis G at 2.4K. At second base, which is never my favorite position to roster. It's definitely on the list, right? Second base, catcher. Those are two positions that I don't mind punting at times. You can make the argument the Angels have enough value that from a mini stack perspective, to get one of your chalkier stacks contrarian, I think you can make an argument for that. But that's really it. So, and someone said Louis G is not in the lineup. Did we just get the lineup? Yeah, we just got the lineup. It is I'm not even Cole Tucker's in there. Cole Tucker's a little bit of a value. Zach Nito's in there as a value. So and also Paris is in there too, the second baseman. I think he's a full punt that he might be 2K. Let me check. He might be the 2K punt. I remember building lineups and he was the other day. He's 2.5K. So if you're looking for some full punts on this team, they have them to help jam in like a Yankees stack with some really expensive pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, some of the expensive bats on the slate look real, specifically the outfield, right? Like Tucker, Alvarez, Judge, Soto. I mean, Stanton's been crushing, so it does seem like a slate where those values keep coming handy, because I do want to pay up for the most part at outfield. But with that, let's get to favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack. I will go first, give you a minute to think about it. Favorite overall stack. I'm actually going to go for two from the same game. I'm going to Kansas City. Favorite stack is the Royals against JP Sears. And then contrarian stack is on the other side against Brady Singer. I like the A's. In May, the A's actually have the fourth highest WRC plus against right-handed pitchers. They've actually been a pretty good offense in the month of May. So, yeah, I kind of like them in that good hitting environment in Kansas City. What about you, man? Going favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack?
Yeah. Favorite stack, let's go with the New York Yankees. They'll be my favorite stack of the day. I like them a lot. I'm just going to still get exposure to them. I don't care. They've been an offense I've wanted to ride all season, and I've been on the train from the beginning since it kind of took off, and I'm going to keep staying on the train for now. And then favorite contrarian stack, I do believe the Phillies will be a little bit low owned. I know not everyone wants to target Trevor Williams, but I think there's too much power in that lineup to ignore the Philadelphia Phillies, so we'll go with them as my contrarian stack.
All right. Most important pitcher today. Obviously, define that roughly as the pitcher you think you'll be most over the field on. I think it's going to end up being Sean Manaea. I think you might have the same answer at 7,700, seeing him around 10% owned. Feels light for me with a really good matchup here against Miami. So I'll be in on the Manaea train. What about you, man, going most important pitcher on the day?
Yeah, I agree. I think Manaea will be pretty important for me, but if I want to pick another one, I don't want to just give the same thing. Let's go with man, because I'm trying to think ownership wise who it could be up here. Let's go. I like Brady Singer, so let's go with Brady Singer. He'll be another one that's pretty important to me.
Brady Singer. Pick the worst pitcher on the whole damn slate, man. Come on.
He's not the worst pitcher. This is what you told me last time with Javier, by the way, and he was the best pitcher on the slate. So there we go. You can adjust your lineups, with that information.
It's the second best pitching slate of all time today. Let's get to home run calls. I got to take a guy against your man, Brady Singer. So I'll go with Brent Rooker, your home run call for the day. That's
fine. And Boss Bro's laughing at me, just like Beanier laughed at me and said Joey Estes would be the best pitcher on the slate. So, keep laughing, Boss Bro. But, so who did you say? You said Brent Rooker, who I always like me some Brent Rooker, but not going to love him as much today. Are we doing home run call or favorite overall slate? Which one is it?
Home run.
All right, home run for me is going to be Mr. Tyler O'Neill against the soft tossing lefty. He's going to own the Libs, a.k.a. Matthew Libator.
All right. Favorite overall hitter on the slate? I'm going with Kyle Tucker. Power speed combination against Colin Ray is absolutely perfect. So Kyle Tucker, my favorite overall hitter on the slate. What about you, Mango?
Yeah, we talked about, man, there's some really good outfielders today to spend up on. Like, it's definitely not a day to plug in like the Willie Calhouns and all the cheap outfielders, right? Not saying you can't play a Willie Calhoun, but just saying like don't play like 3 dirt cheap outfielders in my opinion. Aaron Judge, I think he's the best overall guy on the entire slate. If you had to pick the one guy who scores the highest points, he would be my option, Mr. Aaron Judge.
All right, that'll do it for this show. Thanks for watching, everybody. Still got an hour before lock here. Hopefully get those lineups in. Hopefully see some winners up top in the MLB Streets leaderboards today. Of course, got the 2 Game 7s coming up in NBA. Really, really fun day of sports. And, maybe you'll see me and Mangone at the Nuggets-Wolves game tonight to be determined on that one. But thanks for watching, everybody. We do appreciate it. The show will be back at the normal time on Monday, 4:45 Eastern time. I'm sure we'll see a bunch of you there at that time. But for today, that's it. For Mangone, I'm DC. We're out of here.